Greetings to all in the love and light of the one infinite creator, and welcome to the third episode of the Seattle Law of One Study Group podcast. Today's episode is called STO versus STS. For those who are new to the Law of One, STO stands for service to others, and STS stands for service to self. In many ways, you could say that this is basically the meaning of life, to choose one of those two paths to follow for the rest of this life and beyond. If you're new to the Law of One, we hope you enjoy learning what this is all about and how this can change the way that you look at your own life and maybe live your own life from day to day. If you're already familiar with the Law of One, we hope you enjoy hearing some new perspectives on this and probably seeing some transcript passages that you haven't seen before or thought about before. Hopefully, we'll give everyone at least a few insights to help you on your spiritual journeys. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One Study Group. We can be found on the list of study groups on the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook page, and we do meet on Zoom twice a week at the times shown on your screen. You can contact us at the email address shown on your screen to join our group or to get on our mailing list so you can get weekly updates on what we're doing, including you could join one of our Q&A sessions that we do once a month with Jim McCarty, Gary and Trish, and Austin from the L&L Research Channeling team. We do those once a month, and if you contact us at the email address shown, you can join one of those Q&A sessions. We did also upload the first two episodes of our podcast, as you can see on the screen. And episode number 2 is called Law of One 101, and it's about the question, what is the Law of One? It's a great video. We hope to share with any friends or family members who have expressed some interest in what the Law of One is. As mentioned before, today's episode is called STO versus STS. Let's meet our panelists for today. Raquel, would you like to introduce yourself first, name and where you're calling from?
Sure, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Raquel, calling from Wesley Chapel, Florida. Nice to see everyone.
And Andy, would you like to introduce?
Well, hi, I'm Andy, calling from Cornwall in southwest Britain. Nice to see everyone.
Indeed. And Phoenix?
Hello, everyone. My name is Phoenix. I'm calling in from the DC area and very humbled to be a part of this discussion.
We are so thankful to have all three of you joining us today. It's going to be a really great conversation. As our friends in the Confederation say pretty much every time, when you're listening to us, please take what resonates with you, discard what doesn't. We are no more authorities on this stuff than anyone else. We are just sharing our thoughts and opinions as best we can in order to be of service to others. We could be well wrong on anything or everything we say here today. We're all students and we're all teachers. Well, let's get started, shall we? To understand the importance of service to others and service to self, it really helps to understand densities. For folks who are new to the Law of One, you can think of densities as like levels of spiritual evolution, kind of like grades in school. They're called densities because each density, you could say, has light that is more dense, more intense, packed with more truth, more information. You could say that it's kind of like comparing a fiber optics cable to an old copper cable, or maybe a 5G network to a 4G network. Each density level has more stuff to it, you could say, as you increase in your levels of spiritual evolution. So first density, you consider the density of consciousness of elements like earth, air, water, and fire, which supposedly have their own consciousness. Second density would be the level, the density of awareness. It includes plants and animals. The first level of consciousness that includes some consciousness of self, some instinctual reaching towards the light like plants do. Third density is the density where humans are found and cetaceans. It is called the density of choice because, as mentioned, the main purpose of third density is to make a choice. This is the density where entities are conscious both of themselves and of other selves. And it's a density where, in order to move on to the next level, you have to choose to either be of service to others or to service to self. And that means Service to others means being able to see the creator in yourself and all other selves, because the whole premise of the law of one is that all is one. Everything is one. We are all one creator, so to speak. So to be of service to others is seeing the creator both in yourself and in all other selves. It means thinking of others a little more than you think of yourself, seeking to empower others as equals. It is called the positive path. And in order to graduate from third density to fourth density, you need to be at least 51% service to others, 49% service to self, meaning thinking of others just a little bit more than you're thinking of yourself. The service to self path could be described as seeing the creator only in yourself, not in others. It means thinking of yourself more than others, seeking to control others in order to gain power for yourself. It is referred to as the negative path. And in order to graduate to fourth density on this path, you need to be 95% service to self and only 5% service to others, meaning you have to be thinking about yourself 95% of the time at least, and never really thinking about the needs or welfare of others more than, say, 5% of the time. And it cannot be emphasized enough, the passage at the bottom that says in section 7, question 15, Ross said, "The law of one blinks neither at the light or the darkness, but is available for service to others and service to self." Meaning that from the creator's point of view, the service to others path is not morally better than the service to self path, because they are both just different ways of glorifying the creator, either in others or in yourself. But this is a concept that's really difficult for a lot of people to accept, that people who are mass murderers or child rapists or anything like that are conceivably just on service to self path and finding a different way to find the creator within themselves. I think I'll stop there and ask our panelists if they have any thoughts or reflections or anything to add to this. Raquel, did you have anything to add to anything so far?
Yes. Actually, there's a thought that comes up every time I hear, how the paths are equally valid. This thought in my mind is that, yes, they're equally valid, but up to a point. And I also don't think they're equal. Like, equally valid, yes, but the service to self path, obviously, you're here, you make a choice in the third density, but once you get to the sixth density, mid sixth density, you earn the wisdom, I guess, to say, okay, now there's too much love in my heart. I realize the creator's love. I have to make the decision to join the positive path, right? Which is the service to others path. The reason I always have this thought is that I feel like, and we had a session in Josh's group in reading Law of One, and the session was, about service to others and service to self path. And what came to me was that we're the ones, the architects, us co-creators, we were the ones who created this service to self path, because obviously we weren't polarizing fast enough with just, everybody knowing they're the creator. So in creating this path, although it's valid, it's not equal, because the creator is love and always is love, even with the negative path happening. So that thought always comes up in my mind. I know
I'm not sure if I followed you in that. When you said they're not equal, what do you mean by not equal?
Okay, so the creator is love, right? So we, because we wanted to polarize faster, created, now this is just a concept in my mind. I'm not saying this is law or I found it, and this is me having my own thought process in this, in this process. So what I'm saying is that it's a valid path because we created it as co-creators, right? We created the negative path because we needed that contrast in order to, have grist for the mill, as they say, and polarize faster. Now, like I said, it stops in mid sixth density. So if it stops in mid sixth density, it's equal, it's valid up until that point, but is it equal? It's a question. Is it equal? Because the creator's love always been love. So maybe it's not exactly equal. It's valid, but is it equal? I don't know. That's my
interesting way to look at it. I guess I never really thought about that way, and I never really even thought of using the word equal to compare the two. But I think it is worth noting, as you point out, that either path is considered a valid way to the creator, but the service to self path, you could say, is a more longer roundabout path, because as you are suggesting, you can go through fourth, fifth, sixth density on the service to self path. But as our friends in the Confederation have said numerous times, about halfway through sixth density, the entity kind of hits a wall and realizes that it really cannot go any further unless it finally acknowledges the creator and other selves, at which case they do actually have to switch polarity and rejoin the STO path as shown in the diagram.
Yes, exactly. Because it's the negative path is the path of which is not the path of love, right? It's a path of slow, long suffering. So why I'm saying it's not necessarily, I know the term equal came in my mind because I was trying to differentiate the paths and why we created this path and what was the purpose of the path. And obviously we understand the purpose but I was just trying to say the creator is just love from the beginning. So that is the true path, the path of love.
That's a good point. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Phoenix, did you have any thoughts, reflections on that, or anything
Yeah,
else?
that was interesting way of looking at it. I haven't looked at that before. You know, the path of service to others or service to self is what really drew me to not only the Law of One, but individuals who are partaking in reading the Law of One and wanting to live through a path of service to others. And to me made so much. What really resonated with me is the necessity of the path of service to self that exists as a comparison, the polarity of it. You know, I had a pretty tough childhood, and I had someone who was very much of service to self, you know, for many years that when I was young, that I as I look at the Law of One, it explains a lot of feelings that I had, that this was a necessary way of in terms of now I have such appreciation for the individuals in my life who focus so much on service to others, and radiating unconditional love rather than loving by means of control or manipulation. And so, you know, it's easy. I think that I'll be in discussions with others, and it's like we're getting it can easy to like, because we're all just such folks who want to have a path and know the answer. Like, am I close to 51%? Am I at 70%? Am I at 40%? But the best thing for the best, at least for me, what resonates so much is that yes, they're both necessary, but boy, am I happier being on the positive path of service to others. And the others who are along that path or seeking that path are people that I love spending time with and learn so much from, just like everyone on this group. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts that came to my mind.
Yeah, that all makes perfect sense to me. And reminds me, I kind of want to go backtrack to something I said before about both paths being equally valid. When I said that both paths are equally valid, it doesn't mean that I'm condoning mass murder or the Holocaust or anything like that. From a third density perspective, no, they are not both valid paths. And yes, I have chosen the service to others path. And no, I do not consider mass murder to be an acceptable thing. It's just that from the larger sixth density creators perspective, they're valid in the sense that if all is one and all is the creator, then you could say both paths are the creator's way of trying to understand what the fullest range of possible experiences are, both in the extreme light side and both the extreme dark side. And so in order to become whole, complete, in order to know how far you can go into the light, you kind of have to know how far away from the dark you are. So in that sense, everybody, including the mass murderers, are creator exploring the limits of the service to self path of the dark side. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Polarities complement each other.
You could say that.
They
Yeah.
complement each other because one is necessary in order to make a choice one way or the other, you know?
It's a yin yang thing. Yeah, for sure. Andy, did you have anything to add at this point? Any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, I would say that either path, in whichever path it is that anyone's chosen, service is inevitable. And I've been around people who are definitely spend 95% or more of their time either thinking of ways to control others or are controlling others. And it just seems exhausting. It seems so tiring to put all that energy into it. And I think, well, you know, if that's what you want to do, yeah. But in my experience growing up in an environment where, you know, I was exposed to some very, very controlling narcissistic people, I would say that they have actually helped me more than the people who've been service to others. They've given me more catalysts. They've stripped away my ego. They've taken me, you know, they've taken away the false self, and they have provided me with more service than the service to others people that I've been surrounded with, because that the service to others people, what they give is lovely and I couldn't do without it. But without the service to self people, I would never come out of the fog, and I probably, you know, would have just drifted on. And they pushed me to seek.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, super good point. And I'm sure a lot of people watching this can relate to that. It would probably be worth noting that the vast majority of people on the planet are really not consciously aware of what they're doing. People who are rapists or murderers have not consciously chosen the service to self path. They're probably just like really confused and just responding to a lot of the experiences they have had as well. Why don't we go ahead and move on a little bit? As we said, you do need to be at least 51% service to others to graduate on the fourth density positive path, and you need to be at least 95% service to self to graduate to the fourth density negative path. Very few people, as it turns out, graduate to either, and most end up having to repeat third density. So let's take a look at why is it so hard to graduate from third density. I have some passages here I would love to look at. This was from a channeling session by the entity known as Quo. Quo is a principle made up of the social memory complex Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, and Hatan at fourth density for the most part. So there is a connection with Ra there for those who are not aware of that. In this session from 1989, Quo said, "In order for each of you to have been born at this time," whoops, I'm sorry, that is the wrong passage. This is the one I meant to, sorry. From this passage in 2005, Quo said, "It is not often understood among your peoples that it is extremely difficult to achieve a service to others rating of 51% or greater. Indeed, in our opinion, it is as difficult to achieve that rating as it is to achieve the obviously difficult rating of 5% service to others, which is the standard for graduation from third density for those who are seeking along the path of service to self. In the case of service to self polarity, it is overtly clear as to why it should be difficult to achieve such a rating. The purity of thought necessary to achieve the level of self-discipline and control inherent in seeking to control others 95% of the time is patent. There is no one who would argue that it is an extremely difficult and challenging feat to achieve such a polarity. It is far more difficult to see and to service others, to understand why it would not be equivalent to attempt to attain a service to others polarity of 95% service to others as a balance to 95% service to self and the opposite polarity. However, the orientation of third density is geared towards a world that is not neutral, but that is outwardly biased towards service to self. The default position, shall we say, of one within your society or culture, and trained by the authority figures of parents and teachers of childhood, is quite mixed and is perhaps at a balance point or a resting point, if one pictures a swing of a pendulum, at approximately 25% service to others and 75% service to self. This may seem to be quite cruel, and yet it is the natural result of the interactions of those who are dealing with consensus reality issues, such as survival, making a living, and defending the family against what it perceives to be situations and elements which may tear it apart. Added to this is the situation which is unusual upon your planet in terms of planetary entities as a whole throughout the infinite creation of the Father, where entities have come to this third density experience upon planet Earth, having already made service to self choices repeatedly within other planetary experiences, so that unconscious and yet very well established habit acts as a passive force which pulls unconsciously at an entity's ethics or conscious, saying, please be sure that you have taken care of the self, the family, and the structures that you wish to defend. This tendency pulls the natural default position or the resting position of the pendulum of service to self versus service to others down to about 20%. I find this a really fascinating passage on many different levels, including the first thing where they're saying that the orientation of third density is geared towards a world that is not neutral, but outwardly biased towards service to self. That is probably not anything that is new to anybody watching this video. I'm guessing if you're like most every other person on the planet who's like paying attention to what's going on, yeah, it really does seem like the world is really crazy and weird and biased towards service to self, that things have just gone really haywire. And so in that sense, it really makes it a lot more challenging to choose love when that does not seem to be the natural way to go in the world. And yet that is when one studies the archetypical mind, which we will cover in a separate episode. That's part of the wiring of this density. That's part of the design of this illusion to appear really negative in order to challenge you to choose unconditional love for others in spite of it all, which is really an amazing thing to think about. That changes everything, I think, about the way you look at the world. Andy, did you have any thoughts, reflections on this passage? Anything here?
Not just yet. I might let either Phoenix or Rocky go first. Well, actually, for me, it's like in another passage, which we'll probably get to later, it talks about, that some people don't become conscious and that's caused a bit of confusion for me, and also that there is quite a lot of emphasis in the raw material about it being a conscious choice, and yet harking back to the first episode of these podcasts where we talked about wanderers, I have met a lot of people who just instinctively seem to put other people first. They're the ones who will say, here, take my coat, I'm not cold, and there's a lot of people like that out there, and it just seems to me that they are obviously more than 51%. Is it because they're wanderers, or is it because I don't know. Yeah,
Maybe they have just gone through enough incarnations that they are figuring that out consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah,
it's a great observation. I did want to point out to folks watching on video.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents worth. And also the choice to me is, yeah.
Thank you. I did want to point out to folks watching this on YouTube, there is nothing wrong with the sound on your video. I believe, Andy, your sound has gone out a few times as you're speaking. And as you told us before we started recording, I think you might be having a little bit of connectivity issues at your place. So if Andy's sound seems to be going out periodically, it's just a Wi-Fi thing on that end. And we will just deal with it as we can, because it's a joy having Andy here. Phoenix, did you have any thoughts, reflections you wanted to add on this passage?
Yeah, I think this passage, to me, I think as you articulated, looking at the world that we live in seems to be so the feedback loop of servicing yourself. And, it's easy to have discernment or what seems like judgment for a lot of individuals. But I think what this passage does so well is it articulates that so many individuals are just trying to survive every day in and day out. And the societal structures push individuals to make what actions that are more a service to self. And so how lucky are we that being able to see this and to make certain decisions, to choose love, to choose acceptance, to understand why this environment is the way it is, and how it enables individuals to making those decisions, is something that really resonates for me, and also makes me hopeful that as much as they talk about the pendulum swinging towards service to others, if there's more of an awakening around the world, that pendulum and all that weight might move back. And I have a lot of hope that can be the case.
Indeed, me too. Raquel, anything to add?
Yes, I would like to start off by saying that, first of all, our planet has already polarized positively. So while it may seem like there's a lot of negative things happening, we're already a 4 density planet. And so I would say this is a lot of like collective unconscious behavior that we're seeing, and like the planet needing to heal itself and kind of move through all that shadow work, as they say, in order to get to the 4th. So we're already a positive planet. It's not as bad as it seems. There's a lot of wanderers here that are helping to lift and raise the vibration of the planet, and continue to do that. Us doing these podcasts and having these discussions helps to help others see what's going on, and help them to look within and decide and make choices and different decisions, and kind of help them get themselves out of the dreaded sinkhole of indifference. And I feel like a lot of us wanderers are now noticing what that sinkhole of indifference looks like. And it looks like some of our friends, some of our family members, who are not necessarily fully service to self, or is possibly serving the self more, but maybe if they had more information or had more options, because you see the negative path, the STS, they're really doing a good job of making us think this is a negative planet, right? But it's not. And so without that information and all the stuff that is received by others, it keeps them locked in that program of sinkhole of indifference without making a choice, a good choice for themselves. Because I know there's a lot of people that do things that seem service to self, but they really don't want to be that way. They just unconsciously make that choice over and over again. And if they had more awareness or more information, I would say, because that's all we can offer them right now is information, to make better decisions, then I don't think our planet, I don't think that the outlook would be so grim if there was more information. So I'm glad we're doing this podcast, because I feel like this is how we get more information out there, to just give people ideas to think about.
Well said. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and for folks who are new to the Law of One, it's worth noting that what is being shared here is really something that indigenous peoples all over the world have been saying for a long time, that the world is going to change. There's going to be some very dramatic earth changes, and it will be the beginning of a new age, hence the expression new age. And as our friends in the Confederation put it, you can think of the universe as like a big giant galactic clock face. And somehow our part of the universe, our galaxy, our solar system seems to be moving into a part of space-time and time-space where vibrations are changing, and 3rd density vibrations are kind of dying out, and 4th density vibrations are, the planet is already being washed and immersed in 4th density vibrations, as Raquel said. So yeah, they have said the planet already is a 4th density positive planet. It's just humanity, which seems to be kind of lagging behind for a number of reasons that have been alluded to. I kind of like that part at the end of the paragraph that's on the screen, the part that is in blue. There's some subconscious voice that is telling a lot of people to please be sure that you've taken care of the self, the family, and the structures that you wish to defend. It's kind of a callback to what they refer to as our great ape ancestors, this primal instinct, this tribal instinct that seems to get people to defend their tribes against what they perceive as attacks by other tribes, whether it's like political parties or different religious groups or different ethnic groups or so on. There's something that draws people to that. So that is worth noting as we go to fourth density. It might not be a matter of just being service to others in your own blood family or your own tribe. But service to others in fourth density really means service to others as in everybody else, unconditional, universal love for everybody, including those that you really hate the most, the ones that you find most unlovable. That's really kind of the key here. So how good do you have to be to graduate in service to others? Let's take a look at another passage. This is from 1989, where Quo said, "In order for each of you to have been born at this time, you had to be able, through the use of faith and will, to achieve service to others of a 51% grade or higher. That is, you are capable of serving others more than you serve yourself." It is kind of funny to imagine that looking around, everyone you see around you, this was the cream of the crop. These were the people who had the best chance of graduating. If you've been to Walmart recently, you might find that fairly surprising. And yet, yeah, that does seem to be the case. But I think as Andy, I believe, and others have pointed out, I think everybody watching this video can think of more than a few individuals in their life who have really demonstrated a life devoted to service to others, even if they don't know what the law of one is and they've never heard of service to others. Maybe it's because of their religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs, but whatever it is, yeah, a lot of people are already pretty much vibrating at that rate. Quo goes on to say, one might describe this as giving the other person the larger half of the sandwich instinctively. That is a simplistic way of describing the attitude of service to others. It is not that one is hurting the self, one takes a little less and gives a little more. This is the path of the suffering servant, but it is also the path of unending joy. Therefore, before you came into this incarnation, you planned for yourself temptations, trials, and troubles aplenty. You may have piled your plate very high, or as this instrument has put it about herself, you have done the equivalent of taking a 21-hour semester. It is not advisable, but there are certain souls which are advanced enough that we permit even an ambitious lifetime. For if the ambition turns into fruit, it shall be great fruit. And those who suffer are those who bear fruit. Therefore, each of you has chosen difficulties on purpose, not for your abstraction, disgust, apprehension, fear, or worry, but for catalyst that you may learn the lessons of love that it has been given to you to learn to make the choice of service to others. Pretty much what I think somebody here was saying about 10 minutes ago. And I think that is one of the things that I appreciate most about the law of one, the understanding that nothing is random and all the shit that you seem to be having to go through on a daily basis is not random. It was actually designed this way, and you yourself designed this before this incarnation with your spirit guides and with your higher self. You planned all of this suffering specifically in order to learn the lessons of love that we are learning together. Phoenix, did you have any thoughts, reflections on any of this?
Yeah, I guess, that you just said it so beautifully. I mean, I wonder how much this resonates so much for me, and I hope it's true because I kind of had some difficulties growing up, and I dealt with an illness that made me consider mortality much sooner in my life than most. And, I like to think that was my plan of figuring out how to love even more. And you know what? If even that's not true, that's what happened. That's what yielded. It was this amazing these catalysts, and to be able to love those who've hurt you, but not just love them, but find beauty in that time in your life and the lessons learned from it, and actually be thankful and not want any, not to change the past. And so I think you just said it so beautifully, Jonathan. I can't wait to hear what others have to say about it.
I always love hearing my words come out of somebody else's mouth. My thoughts. Thank you. I'm glad we agree on this, see it the same way or similarly. Raquel, any thoughts, reflections?
Yes, I would offer, I guess my own personal thoughts on this would be that it's very difficult to recognize that you made these pre-incarnated decisions, especially when Catalyst is hitting you full speed and it's so hard and so it's just like you don't know what to do. And I just offer a little hope that to others that watch that when Catalyst is heavy and you are going through it, just remind yourself that yes, you did make these choices, you made these decisions before, and that you can make different choices here now. And these different choices, or once you've made the choice and you start to polarize positively or negatively, your choice is that your catalyst, you kind of recognize what's happening with your catalyst. You recognize the patterns, you recognize, the decisions, the different decisions you need to make. So it's kind of like, I think it's helpful to know that you have the ability to choose different catalysts for yourself. So don't get caught up in like, okay, this is just the heavy catalyst and I'm stuck with this for the rest of the time I'm here. No, once you polarize and you're starting to polarize more positively, your catalyst can change and your choices that you make change the catalysts that come your way. So it's a little bit of hope because like, I know I used to get so like, oh my gosh, I chose such heavy catalyst. I put so much on my plate and now I can't handle it. That's how I used to feel. But I've been making different choices with each catalyst, recognizing the catalysts when they come. And since I'm polarizing positively, I notice now the stuff that happened kind of before they're coming my way to hit heavy. And I kind of make different decisions to not let them affect me so much. So I think that's important for others to understand. Don't get boggled down in the catalyst that's happening to you right now, because it's hard at some points.
Well said. Thank you. Andy, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just, I mean, I know this is really triggering for some people because there's a lot of people out there who would say, I didn't choose this, life is unfair. It's, it's just like you've had it easy. And yet I think my turning point was when I started to see heavy catalysts as gifts and really turn within. And heavy catalysts might not even be what's heavy to an outsider, like someone might have done something really horrible to other, that to you, but to other people it might seem really horrible, but it's something that maybe you can handle. And yet the very next day someone cuts you off in traffic and somehow that makes you way more angry. And I think that's how I judge intensity of catalyst rather than the thing that actually happened. I judge it by my own reaction to it. And a lot of them I now see as gifts when I have really intense catalyst. It's like, great, what is this trying to show me that I have not wanted to see before? And it's just stuff bubbling up for us to deal with. And Ra says repeatedly, end quote, that the ultimate service to others is by working on yourself. And I love this passage. I think it's beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Yeah, and I was just having a conversation with a friend about this yesterday. I think one thing that I really appreciate, one of many things that I've really come to appreciate about the law of one is the understanding that it gives us about reincarnation. I think it's fair to say that most people, at least in this country, really don't think about they probably don't think about the afterlife much at all, unless they are Christian or belong to some religious tradition where that's kind of a big deal. But otherwise, I don't think most people really think about where they go after they die. And if they do, while they might entertain the theoretical concept of reincarnation, unless they're Buddhist or Hindu, I don't think they take it very seriously. And one thing that I've appreciated so much about the law of one is, from that point of view, no, it's a given, it's a fact, and it's confirmed so much in the work of Michael Newton and other hypnotherapists who have regressed people to remember previous incarnations or experiences in between incarnations and such. And so this whole idea that nothing is random is really important. And Yeah, the whole heaven hell thing never made sense to me before. I couldn't understand a theology where nobody knows where you were before you were born. Apparently, you didn't exist, but apparently, you're born. And in this little tiny span of time that you got, you have a couple really important decisions to make. And if you like make the wrong decisions, you're going to go to burn in hell for eternity, or you're going to go to a really blissful place for eternity. It's like, and that's it. I just never made any sense to me. The idea that you are kind of an ongoing spiritual evolution and you are learning things that you need to learn in each incarnation to continue to grow and evolve. Well, that kind of makes a lot of sense. It kind of goes along with what seems to be happening in the natural world.
Yeah.
And I like this part about the, go ahead, Phoenix.
Just saying, I totally agree, Jonathan. That was what attracted me to just the Buddhism and Hinduism and the law of one and those types of teachings. It's that for me, and I wonder if you all would agree. It's like, it's incredibly humbling that, Phoenix isn't just going to go to heaven and be Phoenix forever. I am but a book, I'm a book on the shelf that to read and learn from in this lifetime. So in one way, it's really humbling. And the other way, it's so beautiful because it's like, well, all I have is right now is me, how I live, who I love. Can't change the past, can't, in the forward. And so I do agree with you that it is in our culturally, at least in the States, I would say it is a little bit taboo to talk about, death or the afterlife when it's like a pretty big deal. We're all going there. But that's why passages like this resonate so much for me that, and I think what Andy said was so right, is that this could be triggering to a lot of individuals. Like, I didn't choose for my child to pass away, or I didn't choose for this to live in this war-torn area while you're in this really nice area of the world. But something that when going through hard times, at least for me, really resonates, that maybe this was chosen and all I have is how I'm going to get through it, or decide how I'm going to get through it and learn from it.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah, and if you go back to the density diagram, you really could think of it as we're in third grade, basically. Mm-hmm. And we're really just trying to graduate third grade and get to fourth grade. But in order to do that, we have to learn how to think of others at least a little bit more than we think of ourselves. That's part of what it means to grow spiritually. And I love the thing about describing as giving other person the larger the half the sandwich instinctively. It's really easy to get caught up into the same trap as Christians, where it's like, well, I'm not being good for the sake of being good. I'm being good so I can get into heaven. I'm being good so I can graduate to fourth density. And as our friends in the Confederation have said, graduation isn't a matter of passing a paper and pencil test. It's really just a matter of how you're vibrating. And if your natural vibration is such that you would just instinctively give someone else the larger half of a sandwich, then that's kind of how it works.
Yes, Jonathan. And I think that the bottom here in the blue, where it says those who suffer, those who bear fruit, that is important to understand, that your suffering or your catalyst, you do bear fruit when you do make the right decisions and you polarize. And it's important to note that even though your service to others, or if that's the path you've chosen, that the catalysts do come and they continue to come. You don't just make the choice and they stop, they continue to come. But every time you make a decision to stay on your path, your chosen path, and we are service to others here. However, we don't knock the service to self path. We have more experience with the service to others path. So every time you make a choice that is of the positive polarity, you do polarize. So, and you're going to get those choices all the time. So don't think that, okay, I made the choice, I'm service to others now, and now I can sit back on the couch and enjoy my ride. Doesn't happen. Catalysts are going to continue to come, but you bear the fruit. The fruit is the experience, the knowledge, and the polarization of positive as each catalyst comes and you make the choice and you continue to stay on that path. So it's important to know that the suffering is not in vain. You do, your higher self is cheering you on and saying, keep going, you're doing a good job. And, you just keep making those choices towards positive polarity, and you will see the difference once you, walk the steps of light, as they say.
That's a great point to bring up. I appreciate your sharing that. That just making the choice doesn't mean you're done. It means you're going to get hit with a lot of what Carla called pop quizzes, little tests each day to see if you really are polarized. to 51% or more. Which brings us to another good question, which is, well, how can we best be of service to others? I've got a couple passages to look at on this one. This was from 1999, and Kuo said, "Each of you has a heart full of love, and yet because it is a human heart with a human love, the human supply will run out quickly when it is placed under stress. The hope that each seeker has of becoming a person that may hold a higher quality of love is the hope of moving more and more into the world of eternity and away from the world of space and time, cause and effect, quantity and quality and differentiation. The one known as St. Paul the Apostle wrote most beautifully that one may do all manner of wonderful things, but if one has not love, one is nothing but a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal, and perhaps this seed thought may open to you the nature of service to others. For it is not what service you do, it is the love with which you do this service that makes all services equal. It is not the healing or the feeding or the changing or the washing that you do. It is the quality of love with which you do it." Which echoes something in another session from 2010, where Kuo said, "There is nothing so humble that it does not sing of the beauty of the Creator. The waves of spirit are not the ways of humans. There is no measure for service. All services are equal. If you clean the bathroom with love in your heart, it is as much a service as if you heal or channel or teach with love in your heart. And indeed, if one who teaches or heals does not have love in her heart, you who clean the bathroom are serving more efficiently, more efficaciously, and to a higher degree of beauty." It always strikes me as I read passages like this, have to remind myself that these words are coming out of somebody's mouth who is in like deep meditation, and that nobody I know who's an instrument, none of them talk like this in your normal waking life. They're really just profoundly beautiful, and the things that are said are just full of so much more spiritual wisdom than I've seen in most anything else. Andy, did you have any thoughts on either of these passages?
Yeah, I think they're so beautiful. I like the humility of it, and also, it just reminds me when I'm doing chores and I'm tired and I don't really feel like doing it. There's a mantra I repeat to myself, and it's, "Thank you for the opportunity to serve. May everything I do be an act of love." And somehow, that makes cleaning the toilet a bit easier. And
Yeah.
because these are all opportunities, and not to come at service with resentment and sacrifice. It kind of reminded me of a line by William Butler Yeats, where he says, "Too long a sacrifice makes a stone of the heart." I don't know if you're familiar with that saying. And basically, I kind of think that the reason why we only need 51% is because we still need to look after ourselves. And if we push ourselves too far in service to others and neglect ourselves, resentment might build, and then we get lost, and by going too far because we're merely human, it could flip. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what other people think.
What do you think, Raquel? Any thoughts?
Yes, I can definitely riff off of what Andy was saying. I'll take my own personal situation. So when I have two kids and my son has autism, and when he first got diagnosed, I was angry. And that's one of the catalysts, as they say, that we possibly pre-incarnatively chose. But it hit me like a Mack truck, and I wasn't ready for it, nor did I want it. So I was just angry. I was taking care of him, yes, but I was angry at the situation, not at him. So obviously he was still well taken care of. But I was angry at the situation. I didn't want him to be sick. I didn't want him to have to go through this. He couldn't do anything for himself. I had to teach him more than a child, more everything. To this day, he still needs full care. So what I'm saying is that it got to a point where I became resentful of caring for him. And I knew that wasn't right. And that's when I needed to look within and say, why am I feeling this way? And the reason I was feeling that way is because I was offering too much of myself. I was giving way more than 51%. I was giving almost 99, to be honest. And so I had to find a way to dial it back and remember myself as the creator. And so I want to put that out there, that it's very important. What Andy was saying is that to remember yourself as the creator who needs that 49% of love and care and service as well. So it's not just you offering yourself completely to somebody without caring what happens to you, which I was there, so I know. It's also being mindful that you as a creator needs to be well taken care of too. I also want to touch on the topic here where the quality of service, this is a good time to bring in intention. Your intention is really what drives your service. If you set an intention that my service is to offer, the best loving care I can to somebody, or just offer somebody to hold the door, or help somebody to the car with their groceries, your intention behind that, even if that's not received by the other person or other self as you doing something worthy of positive polarity or something kind, it doesn't matter. It's your intention that you have done the service with that counts. So when you do something good and somebody doesn't recognize it, because a lot of times we hold the door for somebody and they just pass through and they don't say anything, or you let somebody in through when they're driving and you let them go in and they don't even wave, and you're like, you could have said a wave. I've done that in the past, but now I realize that those little acts of service that I do, I don't expect nor want anything in return. It's my intention that I put out there, and so that's all that matters to me now. So I just wanted to bring up intention being very important of how you perform your service, and it doesn't matter if it's little, small, or big. From the intention is there, that's the good intention. That's what matters.
Well said. Yeah, and our friends in the Confederation have said many, many times that that is one of the big lessons that all of us came here to learn, how to love without any expectation of anything in return. Something I'm imagining most people watching this have experienced and can relate to. Phoenix, anything to add?
No, just that I think that's absolutely right. Just in terms of, I've had to, in my own life, think about when I'm, say, reaching out to someone, how much am I doing that to get that response back, or for them to think I'm a good guy reaching out to them? Or even times when I've shown love to individuals who maybe have hurt me and wanting to still be in their life or show them love, how much am I doing that because I really, really mean that? I really care about them, or am I trying to convince myself that I can really forgive this or love them? And so it's a constant thing that I struggle with in terms of and passages like this kind of bring me back to, like, it is exactly what Jack said, like, just like the Rex said, the intentions of what we do makes it so pure and also makes it so wonderful. Like, it's better to, and I think I love the example of cleaning the bathroom with love in your heart, because that's something that's pretty difficult to do, but boy, is life better and happier when you're able to do that. At least in my experience.
And I love a clean bathroom. So
Yeah.
And it's not just limited to cleaning the bathroom. It
Oh,
could
really?
be washing dishes. It could be sweeping
I
the
think so.
floors. It could be taking the dog for a walk. Yeah, everything. Yeah, I really like the part about the references to space, time, and time, space. They've said elsewhere that in space, time, the dimension that we see and experience, it would be kind of obvious that healing 100 people has more impact than healing one person or than cleaning the bathroom. But in time space, or the metaphysical dimension, as they refer to the dimension that we really can't see, that's not necessarily the case. And that it is what they call a spiritual democracy, where all souls are equal, all acts of service are equal. Someone who heals 1,000 people doesn't necessarily carry any more weight than someone who's cleaning the bathroom with love in their heart. And that's a really beautiful thing to realize, that everyone on this panel and everyone who's watching this video has the ability to change the world and heal the world and fix the world as much as Jim McCarty or anyone else on the channeling team, just by being themselves. Which brings us to a couple more passages I wanted to look at. Got a few of them here. This one from 2009, where Kuo said, "This love that you have colors the light of the Infinite One in beautiful colors made of your personality, your choices, your quirks, your uniqueness. As you bless the light that flows through you, you bless the world, and in your way, you are lightening the consciousness of planet Earth. It is indeed the greatest service that any can offer, that service of allowing the light to shine through the personal self and out into the world." And in 2001, they said, "The main service of each of you is the service of being yourself. For when you are most truly and deeply yourself, when your heart is open and vibrating in its fullness, you become a crystal capable of receiving energy, transmuting energy, and releasing energy into the Earth's sphere. Many of you from other planets have come here specifically to do this. It is a simple process. You breathe in, you breathe out, you allow the truth to flow through you." And in this other passage from 2001, they say, "You allow the infinite supply of energy, that is the love of the Creator, to flow through your energetic system and out into the earth planes. And as you bless this process, encourage it, you intensify and enhance these vibrations that move into the earth plane. Each of you, by being the way you are, is at this time a servant of the light, and you need do nothing more than live and love to fulfill your mission on earth. Naturally, each of you gave yourself gifts to share, lessons to learn, and outer services to perform, and we encourage each to move along those lines of talent and gifts as you perceive them, looking for ways to share those gifts. But realize that more than those outer doings, the inner essence is the true and central gift of the life which you have come to offer. It is a beautiful gift. It is a gift that will take you all of your life to give, and our encouragement to you is to give this gift and do this service regardless of what else you seem to be doing in your life." Such beautiful passages that echo what I think Raquel said earlier, that really the greatest service you can offer is really not a matter of doing anything. It's just being yourself. And I love that passage, first passage about the beautiful colors of your personality. There's other passages where they've compared each of us to a stained glass window. Each person is like a stained glass window, and it's the same light of the same Creator that's shining through each of us. But each of us colors that light in different and beautiful and unique ways. And that just really strikes me as just incredibly beautiful. Phoenix, any thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, just I love these passages, and I remember Jim said on one of the Q&As, we're all just different facets of the same gem, all individuals. And I think for me, when reading this, I always, growing up, I think there's sometimes in our society, there's kind of like a judgment of like, well, to truly live, you need to have children, or to truly live of service, you need to be doing this or that. And what this in these passages to me just distills so perfectly is that you don't need to make any major changes in your life. Just be you, be happy, love others, and find the beauty in others. And I found that I'm not perfect at that by any means, but I'm a lot happier when I'm able to see others as a different facet of the same of the same gem, rather than feeling like I only could be hanging around people who are on my path or following my or making decisions that I'm making in my life, because all we have is is ourselves, and to love others. So anyway, just beautiful passages. I can't wait to hear what you all have to say about it too.
I love that gem visual, the facets of the same gem. Thank you for bringing that out. Andy, anything to add?
Yeah, I think being yourself in this illusion is actually really difficult for very many people, because it's from a very young age, children are told, or they're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And and parents and the grown-ups around them start labeling them and try and say, well, this person's going to be like this and like that, and then it gets stuck. And so many of us get stuck into this mode of I am good, I am bad, I'm nice, I'm whatever. And in a way, whatever comes after the I am stops us from becoming ourselves, you know, and being ourselves is being with the I am as I see it, and just participating in that beingness. And that is that when you think about how hard this, it makes sense that being service to others is difficult then. Yeah.
Indeed. Well said. Yeah, so much of this, as we have learned, is about being rather than doing. And that is a very un-Western way of thinking about things. I think in Western civilization, it's really about actions and performing good acts. And we love action movies and doing things to help others. But maybe more in Eastern traditions, it's really more conventional to understand that it's about being more than doing. Raquel, anything to add?
I think I can contribute. I guess being yourself it's easier said than done, like everybody's been saying, but I think it's a service of getting to know yourself, remembering yourself, I should say, because as I started to remember who I was and recognize myself as a wanderer and that I came here to help and that I was offering my service to others, the more I kind of removed those barriers of who I thought I was and the programming and everything that I assumed myself to be, I started to unveil and kind of like a crystal, they say when you pick it out of the dirt, you start to rub off all the soot. And I started to see myself shine more as the creator. So I think that being yourself is really letting the creator flow through you. And if you can allow that, you are then expressing the creator. What you came here to do was let the creator use you to have the experiences that the creator wants to have. And yes, you have certain choices, as they say, but once you align yourself to the creator's will, I mean, it just becomes like a beautiful expression, because then you get to see all the creators beautiful things that the creator creates, art, music, conversations. It's you're just authentically being the creator. And it's a beautiful thing when I get into that space and I allow the creator to just use me as an instrument. And it's not easy to always be there, but when I'm there, it just feels so beautiful, because I'm like, the creator wanted this to happen, and this is the creator's expressing itself through me. And I feel good when that happens. It really is a beautiful blessing to me. So I think being yourself is allowing the creator to express through you.
Beautifully said. Yeah, and again, another great reminder that you don't have to go to other countries and do mission service projects unless that is a great expression of who you are. But just being yourself, you don't have to do anything other than be alive. For many folks who came here from other planets or other densities, your main mission here is just to survive, to live, and to love as much as you can. So what are the benefits of the service to others path? Got a couple passages to look at. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. If you want to be of service to others, how can we fix or change the world? In one passage, Kuo said, "We do not suggest a grand program of changing the world in order to achieve a more loving Earth world. Rather, we suggest that you confine your work to your own consciousness. That is your true arena of adventure and challenge." On 2007, they said, "When entities do awaken and do realize that it is an urgent matter for them to shift their consciousness, they can feel that it is needed for others also to shift their consciousness. There comes into play a tendency towards what we might call spiritual materialism, in which you want everyone to form up and live in a new way. In this regard, we would suggest that the skillful choice is always to work on the self, without regard for working with other entities. Service to others, working upon what you perceive needs to be done in the world, begins and ends within yourself. Until the point at which you are asked specific questions that you may answer in what you hope is a spiritually helpful manner, the work you do on yourself is sufficient and more than adequate in terms of how you affect the consciousness of planet Earth. Change yourself and you change the world. That is how powerful you really are." And in session 71, question 16, Ra said, "To aid the self in polarization towards love and light is to aid the planetary vibration." I have found that so life-changing for me. Not that many years ago, before the Law of One, when I was really politically active, I was really convinced that my mission on Earth was to come here to save the world and to change the world. And I spent a lot of time and effort and frustration in trying to change the world to fit my perceptions of what the world was supposed to be, including through political activism. But after reading these passages and others and such, it was such a huge burden lifted from my shoulders to realize, no, I don't need to save the world. The world doesn't need me to save it. And really the best way to heal the world is to heal inside all the issues and traumas and such that I have inside. To heal those is really the best way to heal the world. And that, I would hope, is really hopeful and inspiring to anyone watching this, also realizing that you don't have to convert anyone else to the Law of One. You don't need to knock on doors. You don't need to shout it from the rooftops. You don't really need to get involved in politics any more than you feel like you need to. But just healing yourself within, changing yourself within, is the best way to change the world. Raquel, any thoughts on that?
And that was beautifully said, Jonathan. And it was so personal to see your growth and your development from the short time that I've even known you, that, you bring us all together, and we're so grateful for you doing that every week and devoting your time. We just thank you for your service, honestly. But on the another note, the one song
I was trying to do that without expectation of being thanked, but you kind of fucked it up there, but thanks anyway. I'll take it.
I got you. We do things that, yes, we don't expect, but it's nice to say somebody to say thank you once in a while. It's okay.
It is nice to hear.
So I'm
Thank
glad
you.
you receive it with love. But
Love you too.
the first thing that comes into my mind is Michael Jackson's "Man in the Mirror." And honestly, when I was reading this, that came in my head. And when I was younger and I heard that song, I was like, "What the hell is he talking about?" But because I didn't understand deeply. I understood it, but I didn't understand it. And now I really, really get it. Everybody thinks that, they're here that they alone can change the world, and they can, but it takes you going within and just being the best version of yourself. And today I was speaking to a friend of mine, the lady that helps me here, and she was really upset about what's happening in the United Kingdom, how they're starting to I guess, kill a lot of religious people that don't believe the same as they do. And it was really hard to see. And she was so taken by it. And I tried to explain it to her, and I said, listen, it's not that these things don't affect you. And, we don't see that they're wrong in our opinion, and that it shouldn't be happening. But you have to keep your vibration high and understand that these things are going to happen in the world. But if you can consciously keep your vibration high, and then obviously meditate and send love to the ones that are hurt, that's the best you can do right now, because you can't think that you're going to change it by being angry and then wanting to fight. It's not going to help the situation. The best thing you can do, I said, our group, we get together, we meditate, and that amplifies the vibration of the planet, keeping it positive, moving it towards and keeping it in the positive vibration. And I know that was a bit much for her to understand, but I said, just keep your positive, keep being you, and keeping your vibration positive is the best thing you can do in a case when things look really negative and look really hard and dramatic. And so it's right there. You just have to stay true to you, keep your vibration as high as possible. That's very important. I know it's hard to do all the time because we go through all these ups and downs, but I say meditating and joining groups that have the same intent as you to keep the planet in the positive polarity and to, offer their love and support to others. So, it's one of and I see it here where it says, the service to others are working upon to perceive the needs to be done in the world, and it begins and ends with yourself. Yeah, you. Because if you have all these negative thoughts, it goes into the collective consciousness. So it's you that has to control that, because if there's a cloud around us and it's dark, if each person starts to lighten their mood, their vibration, that cloud is going to start to dissipate and become a pure white cloud again. That's all I have.
Well said. Thank you. Andy, anything to add?
No, I mean, it's still something I'm trying to make sense of, because Jesus Christ said that as well. You just in need to change for one person and then change the world. And I'm still trying to make sense of it. But I love the idea of us knocking on doors with name badges going, do you know about these aliens from Venus that build the pyramids?
Yes, we are the
Uh,
alien Jehovah Witnesses.
Yes.
yeah. Andy, I think we lost your sound there briefly. Or I'm getting signs saying my internet connection is unstable. Can you guys hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phoenix, do you have anything to add?
Well, just that I can really relate to what you were saying, Jonathan. Like in this world with, in my view, so much wrong and so much hurt, it was easy to focus on getting that next degree to change the world, or getting this job, or worrying about these people over in this country, or being so angry that a large segment of our population might not be so accepting of our other brothers and sisters of ours. And, that was important for me to keep educated with what was going on in the world. But I think a lot of it was delaying learning about myself, learning who I was. And I think being scared about what would be under that veneer and being comfortable in your skin, it's still a challenge. It's, but at least for me, and I just would say for anyone listening, for me, meditation was the changing pivotal point in my life, because for me, there was no greater way to sit with how I'm feeling and to be able to observe emotions or desires and love without just not acting on it, and being able to see the creator in myself. And so that was a really important pivotal part, where then things like materials like the Law of One or certain tenets in Buddhism or Hinduism really spoke to me. It was kind of starting that big first domino, at least for me. And I've, and it's something that all of us are working on, reading these passages and being together and spreading love. But yes, the passage really speaks to me in terms of learning more about yourself.
I really appreciate your bringing up meditation, and I know it's come up a couple of times also today. I never meditated before learning about the Law of One. The idea of sitting in silence or whatever in meditation, that was just not something I was able to do. But I think, like you and other folks, as I've learned a little bit more about these spiritual teachings, and meditation is something that Ra and Kuo mention like constantly. That seems to be the default answer to just about every question, other than love, is to meditate, go into that silence and go deep into your deeper mind and see if you can connect with Creator that way.
And to add on, I always thought meditation was so an individual act, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who could say this, but I mean, our Tuesday meditations, if the difference of connecting with that energy, it's like when you're thinking of that person and then they call you out of the blue. Like I think there's something there, and I find that if you're struggling with meditation, at least for me, my path was seeking like-minded individuals to meditate with, even though it seems such a solitary action, means so much, at least to me, at least in my world.
Yeah,
that's great to hear. Yeah,
I agree too.
Yeah. And so did want to note for folks who are watching at our Tuesday, Saturday Zoom sessions, we do 20-minute Gaia meditations just to pray for Mother Earth, for world peace, for fourth density, and all that good stuff. And yes, there's definitely a power in meditation as a group. So appreciate everyone who joins us, and all who are watching this are welcome to join us. Just email me at that address that I showed at the beginning. You can get our mailing list to get the Zoom links. Why don't we go ahead and skip ahead and look to the service to self path? So what is the service to self path like? In this 1992 session, Kuo said, from the standpoint of the negative path, the positive path is naive and weak. From the standpoint of the negative path, the negative entity feels that it must look out for itself and shall take all opportunities to take advantage of others who are naive and weak. It further feels that if these entities which are naive and weak learn from this experience to protect the self and use others who are naive and weak, then they have been of service in teaching a previously naive babe in the woods the nature of the real world. Indeed, Almost no negatively oriented entity wishes to use such prejudicial language about its path. The language is more often couched in terms of affirming the self. This is not to be confused with the process of accepting the imperfect and universal self as a heart of preparation for loving others as you love yourself. Yeah, I like the use of the word naive, which comes up quite oftentimes as they have as our friends in the Confederation have described their own interactions with humanity, underestimating how their teachings could be distorted and misused. But yeah, looking at the service to self path as described here, it kind of reminds me kind of a con man or a grifter, somebody taking advantage of naive people who really don't know any better, controlling, manipulating others for their own gain. That is great example of service to self path. But as they noted at the bottom, this is not to be confused with self care, which we also mentioned earlier. Caring for yourself when you're exhausted and tired from helping others or just doing whatever you normally do. Taking care of yourself is not service to self. That's not a bad thing. If you're taking care of yourself when you need it in order so that you can be more of service to others, that's a very positive thing. Phoenix, any thoughts on anything here?
I guess just briefly is like I think we see this a lot in our world today, and I think what's sadder to me is that a lot of times individuals with the best intentions are led astray by individuals who lie and manipulate, who use things like caring about or make certain our other brothers and sisters scary that we need to be protected from. And I think that and it's clearly a path that works because it's like a playbook that seems to be used a lot by individuals on this path. And all we can do is shine our love because that's the best deterrent as much as we can. So that's all I'd have to say on this.
Indeed. Andy?
Yeah, I like I agree with you. The first thing that stood out to me was con men, and I have got con men in my family, and I have been conned, and they're very, very skillful at justifying themselves and blaming the victim.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it is a service. And a lot of them do say, well, it's their own fault for being so stupid and naive. And it is what they do provide is some really deep, meaningful lessons, I think, for the victims, I think.
Well
Not
said.
that it justifies what they do, but yeah.
Indeed. Raquel?
Well, I've been called naive and weak by people, mostly family members that, would seem like they're on the service to self path. And I think this is a good opportunity to discuss what it takes to be on the service to self path. It takes 95%, of your time and energy, like you said, plotting, manipulating, control, power. And it's a lot to be considered service to self. So I know sometimes somebody in our life, we may think, oh, that's a narcissist, that person's manipulative, that person cheats, lies, and steals, but that doesn't necessarily means that they're on their service to self. It just could mean that they're in the sinkhole of indifference and that they really have not made that choice yet. And while it may seem like service to self, because I used to get that confused a lot. I'm like, I know this person is service to self. That's how I used to view, especially once I got in contact with the Law of One material. I was like, oh, STO, oh, STS, but really and truly, it takes so much to be considered service to self. Remember in the raw contact, who they named as people that were truly service to self, Genghis Khan, so there's a real dedication to the service to self path of really closing off your heart space. And if you see somebody in your life who you may think does stuff that are service to self like, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're full service to self. And so I just want to make that distinction, because it's a really dedicated path, and you're all in. And that's why they say the people that are all in, they take a lot of people around them and continue to manipulate, dominate them, and they think they're teaching them something. And really what they're doing is just feeding into what their negative side already feels to be true, that they are the creator. And there's nothing wrong with thinking you're the creator, because we really all are. But I just want to clarify that it just takes a lot to be considered service to self, and not just any old person just doing something that you feel like is just wrong to you.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm struck by that part in the second paragraph in blue where they say almost no negatively oriented entity wishes to use such prejudicial language about its path. The language is more often couched in terms of affirming the self, meaning service to self entities probably don't think of themselves as service to self entities. They probably think they're doing what's good for others, which kind of leads to the big question for me is like, Donald Trump service to others or service to self? I mean, as one who's on the service to others path myself, or think I am, I really find it hard to think of anyone who more personifies the service to self path than him. I mean, I would vote for The Rock before I would vote for Trump to be president. And I'm not talking about the actor, The Rock. I'm saying I would vote for some fucking rock that somebody picked up off the ground before I would vote for Donald Trump as president. I mean, he's always talking about himself. He names everything after himself. He's constantly telling lies and falsehoods. He's constantly insulting or belittling others. He has a long history of inciting followers to commit acts of violence against his political enemies, most notably the January 6th attack to overturn elections. But I mean, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I'm guessing he thinks of himself as service to others. I'm guessing that he's thinking that everything he does is for others. Anybody else have any thoughts
like
on
the
that?
second line there, I think is perfect with that, is that the negative entity feels that they must look out for itself. And I at least in my experiences where I have acted, I would say in a service to self way of manipulating, it's been fear-based. You're fearful of learning about yourself, at least in my experience, fearful that other people will see you for who you really are, and so you need to manipulate this relationship. And boy, is it just freeing when you don't have that, what you feel like this, like life is this zero-sum game, that if you're losing, someone else is winning, or if someone else is winning, you're losing. And so I look at like individuals like someone maybe like Donald Trump or someone others, where I look at them and just like, I just see the weight of that action and the fear that must be driving them. And so that's anyway, I'm sorry, Andy, if I interrupted you, Andy, would love to hear what you're gonna have to say.
Oh, okay, yeah. I find it these days more helpful to think in terms of particular actions. So I think, well, for myself, because I'm more focused on my own development now spiritually, I consciously try to take service to others actions more often than service to self actions, provided I have enough strength. But in terms of the other self, it's really difficult to judge. So I think it's a case by case, action by action basis. And I think I have met a self-confessed previously service to self person before, who told me that it does take a lot of effort. You've got to spend 90% of your time either manipulating others or trying to punish others for not allowing themselves to be manipulated by you. And honestly, I think most of us, no offense, are just too lazy to be service to self.
Too much work.
A lot of work. A lot of work. I'm busy.
Yeah.
A lot of lies to remember.
This whole enslaving thing just sounds like a lot of work to me.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah.
Raquel, do you have any thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so obviously way to keep it non-political there, Jonathan. Just saying, way to slip it in there. But yeah, now that we're on the subject, obviously there's polarizing characters in government. They're all in there for the show. I mean, this is the biggest show on earth. You know, they say wrestling is or whatever the circus is, but that's the show. And that's what we're all tuned in to see. And these characters are there. And yes, you can say this person exemplifies service to self for sure. But remember, from a spiritual aspect, do they really? And are they meeting the goal? Because it's it's a grade and they have to meet that grade. And so
Well, he's no Genghis Khan, I'll grant you that, but
not yet. We'll see, right? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But yeah, there's a grade to meet. And just like the service to others path, there's a grade to meet and the same thing. And so while a lot of characters seem like they're fully there, it's still from the spiritual aspect, are they really there? That's what we have to, we can't be the judge of that because we don't know for sure.
well said. Yeah, and I do want to acknowledge there are many in the Law of One community who I think would identify themselves as Trump supporters. And in spite of everything that I just said, I certainly don't want to insult or demean them or anything like that. I'm just expressing my own opinions based on what I'm seeing. And that's okay. I'm sure people who support Trump are great, good, well-intentioned people as well. And I really couldn't care less who anybody votes for in particular. That is like so far beyond my control that I've stopped worrying about things that I can't control. But I will say in defense of bringing up the subject of politics, I mean, spirituality, I would hope, informs everything you do in life, including your work, your family, how you exercise, what you eat, the people you hang out with. And so I don't know why your political life should be off limits from discussion about spirituality. And Carla certainly didn't see a clear division between those two. So,
yeah.
But I will end the political discussion on that
No,
note.
I will say a lot of people do seem to want to separate it and don't want to bring it into spiritual talks. And I do believe that it has a place, because how do we learn, or how do we grow, or how do we help each other evolve if we can't discuss one of the major things that are happening in our planet as it unfolds, So I personally don't have a problem with it. And I do think people who do probably just need to reflect a little and see that it's a major thing. It's a major piece in the puzzle that we're trying to, or the major thing in our collective that we're trying to heal and trying to help to bring light to. So it shouldn't be off the table, in my opinion.
Thank you. Andy?
Yeah, can I present a hypothetical here? Imagine Trump on the other side, and the creator says, or we need a character like this, and no one wants to play that role because it's difficult, it's tough, you get lots of hate from lots of people, you might get lots of love, but that love feels very transactional. Who wants to play that role? And then Trump comes along and says, yeah, I'll do it. Would that make him service to self or service?
That is a great hypothetical, and that could very well be the case.
It's
Could
just
very
really
well be
hard,
true.
and it's a big spiritually. Yeah. So I don't know.
If he was asked to play that role, he's doing a phenomenal job at it. But actually, you're absolutely right. It's all about intentions, right? And I think that's one of the most, I mean, there's so many awesome things about the Law of One community, but like kind of the ground floor is, hey, the murderers, the child rapists, they're all part of the creator, like we all and are deserving of love. And so once you have accepted this or believe that, I should say, or if that resonates with you and you can have complete discernment that it's not okay, well, then what a better, I mean, there's not I think I have the best political discussions in my meditation group, in my Law of One community, because there is this sense of like, hey, you saying you really dislike Trump, someone saying they do, we have this mutual understanding of the world to be able to talk through it with love in our hearts. So I think there's no better place to talk politics in my mind. That's my opinion.
Awesome. Yeah, and as our friends in the Confederation have said many, many times, third density is not the density of understanding. You just have to accept, we have to accept, we have no idea what Donald Trump's story is or anyone else. He could very well be service to others, could very well be the way Andy described it, because yeah, if the whole point of the end of third density is to really kind of force people to choose between those two paths, I cannot think of anyone who's a better catalyst for that than Donald Trump. Regardless of what he thinks he is, he's really definitely forcing people to choose in their own minds path of service to others or service to self. Why don't we go ahead and move on? I did have a couple other passages I wanted to look at. Yeah,
I
go
just
ahead.
want to quickly say, Josh brought up something in reading Law 1 that the service to self path, they're like the A++ students, they take that difficult path because they're focused on their studies. It's like going to college and the students that are like studying calculus, and then the others that are just hanging out doing nothing, sinkhole, then the ones that are like, I gotta go study, those are STOs. So it's the service to self path could be considered like the star students. That's like, listen, I'm for the creator. I got to do this. I got to get my A's. I'm going all in. So that's one way to look at it. I've evolved my opinion of the service to self path since getting deeper and deeper into this material, because like I said, I know it's valid, and so we just have to honor it as well.
Well said. Yeah, indeed. There's always many, many, many different ways to look at anything. So I much appreciate hearing other viewpoints. A couple other passages on the nature of the service to self path. In 2000, Quo said, "We have called these two paths the path of that which is, that is, the path of service to others, and the path of that which is not, service to self. And the reason that we call them in this particular way is that in service to self, the heart is denied and ignored. Consequently, the main source of power for service to others' entities and the strongest source of power for all is left out of the scheme of things. This is the great limitation, and it is a denial. Consequently, we call service to self the path of that which is not." Another time they said, "Those who wish to serve the Creator by serving others are those who truly wish to open the heart. Those who wish to follow the path of service to self find a closed heart necessary in order to polarize negatively." And somewhere in the middle of this sixth density, those upon the path of service to self, or the negative path, as this instrument has called it, face a choice once again. For they discover beyond a shadow of a doubt that they cannot move forward in their own spiritual evolution until they have accepted at last that the heart holds truth and that other selves are the self. This is a crushing and an absolutely life-changing discovery to those of service to self. And the phenomenon of reversal of polarity occurs at this point individually for each service to self entity. Each entity must make this choice again for the self, whether to stay with all that has been learned along the path of service to self, or whether to switch polarities and move farther on, having accepted the unification of positive and negative paths as a positive path. We talked a fair bit about that last passage already, but this is putting it in Quo's words instead. And yeah, I think that is worth noting that the path of service to self is usually reflected in using lies and falsehoods and deceptions specifically in order to manipulate and control people, because the whole path begins with a lie, which is that only the self is the creator. It's denying the reality that other selves are the creator as well. And in the process of going from there, yeah, it's pretty necessary apparently to shut down the heart. You cannot love anyone else or consider their happiness as important your own. Hence, as I think Raquel was alluding to, it's a really difficult path to follow. You have to be really, really committed to that to be able to be unwilling to love anyone other than yourself. That's tough. Andy, any thoughts, reflections on this?
Yeah, I think I now think of it as it's not just love as opposed, you know, I know it's the heart chakra, but for me the key word here is freedom. You know, the service to others path is more than you know, freedom versus control. So for me personally, the service to others path is about allowing and just letting things unfold and faith, having faith that all is as it should be, all is well. Whereas the service to self path seems like a self-imposed prison sentence, and it's highly disciplined. And like Rocky said, it's, you know, it's like going to college and choosing like a course where you need to get 95% to pass, as opposed to a course where you only need 51% to pass. And
And yet they've said it's just as difficult to achieve the 51% service to others path as it is the 95% service to self, which is tricky.
But I think I don't know, I sort of, yeah, but I think I do have more compassion for them now that I realize how hard it is. And I also have more compassion for the people I've met who do seem to devote a lot of energy into manipulation, control, and being selfish, because it feels like, well, at least they're polarizing, or they're making an effort to. It's not for nothing.
That's a good point. Yeah. Phoenix?
Yeah, just say that I think that is a great point about the free will of allowing others, and something I struggle with, because like an example is a very important part of my life is sobriety. And I for a while would, I think, kind of numb certain feelings with alcohol, and I've now been sober for a while, and I see individuals with that experience who maybe could really benefit like I have. And it's difficult for me to realize, like, okay, the true service to others is to let them find their path and be there with love, and be there with any guidance and help, but not control them, you know, because then I'm becoming the problem, and they're gonna detract from it. So just have an open heart and love, and reading these passages is a good reminder that at the end of the day, it's the decision of the individual of what path they will choose. And I can only imagine that love of like the life-changing experience. Like, yeah, if you're that into service to self, and you've gone through the densities, and you learn that, oh, we're all, you know, all others are myself, that must be a pretty hard time, a difficult switch. And so showing them love, I'm much happier that I don't have that. Hopefully I will not have that experience, but maybe I will. Maybe that'll be my path. We'll see.
Well said. Raquel, anything to add?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts came to mind. So just to play off of what Phoenix was saying, yeah, I wonder what it's like when you have that deep realization that, you know, other selves are the creator. And I wonder how long it takes for a 6 mid-density STS entity to switch that polarity. Is it instant? Do they have to go through a process? Is it, you know, like unwinding all this negativity that they've endured and suffering that they have chosen? I wonder about that process. That's one of my thoughts. And then another one is the path of that which is not. Now, I know I lost a lot of people at the beginning with my opening statements, but I'll keep saying that my statements are only mine. So they're only things swirling in my head. But what I was trying to allude to or get at was that the path that which is not is the path that is not of love, and that the creator's love. So that's not an equal path. Like the real path is still what I'm trying to say. You understand? I know I didn't express it properly. I have trouble expressing sometimes, but the true path is the path of love, which is the path of the creator. That is why it is the path of which is not. It's not of love. It's not the true creator. I think I expressed that better now.
That makes sense. Yes, much better. Thank you.
Thank
We
Sorry.
will rewind and edit that part out of the first.
Get rid of that.
Yeah.
Just present me as all-knowing, okay? I lost my ego, I know everything now, okay? And the last thing is that, so the path that which is not, the creator, I wonder how long it takes. Yeah, so the service to self path, those who wish to follow the path, it's important to note that they block off their heart. So in the raw contact, we know that, you know, in order to polarize positively, the heart has to be open. And so you need to, you know, work with the lower chakras and then jump to the heart chakra. In the service to self path, they skip that completely and go straight to the third eye, which is the sixth chakra. And so it's important to note that the heart is just not involved. And so when you see somebody behaving where they're like, where the hell is their heart? They just don't have that open energy center available to you. And it's okay because that's what they've chosen. But I think that's a big part of it. When you close off the heart, you don't remember your brothers and sisters. You don't remember empathy. You don't remember love. You don't remember any of that stuff. And that is the true path of the service to self, is the heart being closed, being blocked, and just jumping where they connect to the third eye chakra, which helps them to connect to intelligent infinity. And that's how they use a lot of their energetic power to dominate and control others. You know?
Don't forget the throat chakra or the blue ray. That's in there too. Yeah, that's a good point. You know, it reminds me entities that we might label as sociopaths or psychopaths because they appear to have like zero empathy for others. That might be just how they were wired and maybe how they chose to incarnate in this incarnation in order to progress on the service to self path. Because, yeah, you really cannot have empathy if you want to follow the service to self path. Yeah. Which kind of reminds us, I think the question comes up often where if entities thinking about the service to self path already know that eventually they're going to have to switch polarities, then why would they choose that in the first place? There's a couple of good passages here I think that might be worth looking at in that regard. This is from the Raw Contact, so session 19, question 17. Questioner is asking, can you tell me what bias creates their momentum toward the chosen path of service to self? Ra says, I am Ra. We can only speak in metaphor. Some love the light, some love the darkness. It is a matter of the unique and infinitely various creator choosing and playing among its experiences as a child upon a picnic. Some enjoy the picnic and find the sun beautiful, the food delicious, the games refreshing, and glow with the joy of creation. Some find the night delicious, their picnic being pain, difficulty, sufferings of others, in the examination of the perversities of nature. These enjoy a different picnic. All these experiences are available. It is free will of each entity which chooses the form of play, the form of pleasure. Love this passage. The visuals that it conjures up in my mind are just awesome, and reminds me often that, there are people who love watching horror movies and slasher movies, and they love Halloween. Not fans of Christmas. Halloween is their holiday. That's the one that they really rock out on. And there's other people who like Disney movies and Hallmark movies or love stories and such. And I can see how some people are just drawn to dark, and maybe some people watching this can relate to that and just know that doesn't mean you're a bad person or there's something wrong with you. Just know that if you are going to make a conscious choice to pursue that to its logical conclusion, then it might be a tough road to hoe, might be a difficult path to follow. Raquel, any thoughts to add on this?
I love this passage. It's one of the highlights in the Raw Contact because it's such a beautifully way to express the different polarities and how much what they encompass, but yet what they bring, to their table, their perspective table, right? So I would say that I think about it is, I think I lost my thought. Hold on. I had something here I was gonna say. Okay, go to someone else. I'll be ready in a minute.
That I haven't already said.
Phoenix, anything to add?
I think that this passage is a great example or a reminder for me of just the necessity of all that is created, of all that is done, because sometimes I find myself so frustrated with the pain that is going on in the world and and the hurt, and it doesn't make it okay. It strengthens my discernment to try to be a positive light. But these passages, I think that you hit it so perfectly of just like, this isn't the stage for understanding. I think I was like, another Jim Q&A, he was saying, if you can define God, you're probably is not it. We're not going to figure out everything of why what one would perceive as evil exists, or why harmful actions. And that doesn't make it okay, but maybe there is some greater purpose and there's some reason of unity and love that we gain. It makes love even richer, that there is, darkness, that some have chosen darkness, but eventually choose love. So this is something like passages like this give me a lot of hope that there is good purpose in even the things that I am so troubled by that exist.
Indeed. Yeah, and why would someone choose the service to self path knowing all that? Because, well, who wouldn't like to enjoy feeling powerful and having control over others? Who doesn't enjoy feeling like the one infinite creator or God? It's definitely got its appeal. There was another passage right after that where the questioner asks, I assume that an entity on either path can decide to choose paths at any time and possibly retrace steps, the path changing being more difficult the farther along is gone. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. The further an entity has what you call polarized, the more easily this entity may change polarity, for the more power and awareness the entity will have. Those truly helpless are those who have not consciously chosen, but who repeat patterns without knowledge of the repetition or the meaning of the pattern. And that's something that we have alluded to several times in our conversations about those who are not aware that there's a choice to be made, those who have not consciously chosen to be of service to others or service to self, and are just kind of going through walk unconsciously repeating whatever patterns they've always learned. That's the difficult part. But I'm definitely also fascinated by the idea of switching polarity. I think Dawn was asking about something that I had kind of assumed was the case, that if you get up to fifth density negative service to self and decide that you want to switch paths, I kind of assumed it meant you're going to have to start all over. You're going to have to go back to third density and like make the choice differently this time. And I believe Ra is saying, no, that's not the case. If you are fifth density service to self, it's actually not that hard to switch to fifth density service to others, because you have acquired so much personal power at that point. You're able to do that. At least that's my interpretation of it. The same way as at sixth density, if you switch at sixth density negative, you go to sixth density positive. You don't have to start all over because you have acquired that state of power, for lack of a better word. Any panelists, do you have any thoughts on any of this stuff here?
Yeah, I know service to self, us who have chosen the STO path have, I guess, preconceived ideas about the STS path, but I personally am somebody who contemplated it, and I can see myself at some point in this long, never-ending creation process where we are, octave up after octave and density after density, may have chosen the service to self path, not because I relish in the negative aspects of it, but because I want to serve the creator in the best way that I can. You see, the love of the creator is what drives the STS path, I believe, the most, right? They love the creator. They see themselves as the creator. And I can see where I have, in one time in the creation, the multiple billions of years of creation, have decided to choose that path just to be of service to the creator. So like I said, my understanding of STS has evolved, and the acknowledgement of that path as being a path of true service has evolved as well. Because without the dark, you wouldn't know what was light, right? Like, so it really is a complementary, it's complementary in polarities. And I could see myself at one point in creation have chosen that path. And I don't look at it as a negative thing. I look at it as my service to the creator.
Well said. Anybody else? Any thoughts on anything here?
I love the practice of choosing. I love that in deciding to choose the path, for me personally, was deciding to live life more consciously and to take each moment as a choice between serving or resisting. And I think when I decided to do that, I realized, you don't just choose once and that's it. It's a practice,
Indeed.
which eventually becomes habit, like going to the gym.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well said. And it gets easier and easier each time.
Yeah, and it draws you into the moment as well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Phoenix, anything to add?
Yeah, just on that, I think it's sometimes in our culture, there's this instance of like, oh, I had this illness and now I just see the world so differently. And now I act so differently. And, oh, I had this one. And maybe it does. Everything influences a decision. But I think there's a reason, for me at least, why I didn't just meditate once and then am living a different path in life. I constantly am revisiting. And there are going to be actions that are kind of service to self that I have to work through, that in my life. And so that does very resonate with me. And also I think it actually makes a lot more sense to me that an individual who's more polarized can more easily change, because at least in my mind, I've gone through experiences in my life where I'm able to gain far more empathy and understanding for the actions of others that may hurt me or that they may decide by me having actually done those in the past. And so I find that an individual who maybe is strongly on the service to self path can more rapidly change and also love those on that path far more, because that was me, that was mine. And I have now this burden, at least for me, I would feel I have this burden off. I can be a little bit more lazy. I don't have to remember all the lies I'm telling. I don't have to think about the pain. I don't have to close up my heart. And so I can look at those on the path being like, not my path, but thanks for being part of the creator, the creation of all of this. So
Indeed.
that line gives me hope that there is going to, back to that pendulum, that there might be a big swing. I really hope that happens in our society soon, in our world, because I think there's a lot more people to love and a lot of love to give.
Indeed. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Ross said at some point that, that 6 density service to self entity, when they switch polarities, becomes like the person who is the greatest sinner in the Christian traditions becomes the greatest convert, because of the reversal from extreme dark to extreme light.
Yeah.
Let's take a closer look at how service to self entities gain control over others. Going to bring politics back in just a little bit here. In 2002, Quo said the physical manifestations of political intrigue, unrest, terrorism, and war are as they are and are the natural outworking of the processes of graduation in which entities who have chosen the path of service to self are attempting to graduate with the same devotion and focus as those attempting to graduate in the path of service to others. The situations we would suggest are in the hands of all those who understand and realize that they are citizens of eternity who came here to learn and to serve, and who wish to go on to learn and to serve. For that is the desire of the upward spiraling cells of each entity and each atom that exists within the physical and metaphysical universes. We would suggest that the self be attentive. The responsibility of the open heart is to love unconditionally that which it sees, and to see each and everything in person as the self or part of the self. In this other passage, they said, "It is indeed so that the workings of the service to self polarized entities depend heavily on fear, for fear and love cannot coexist. Answering the latter part of your query first, we would assure you that the time of the dragon is short. There are always hopes of repetition of those who would rule by empire and enslave others for the use of the self. Tyranny has not won, nor can it win, the mind and heart of mankind. What it can do, and what it enjoys doing, is ruling nations and creating within those nations climates of fear, as you noted in your query. There are many whose personalities are such that they do not wish to stay abreast of what is happening, and we find that there is no harm whatsoever in learning all that you wish to learn about the affairs of the day, as long as you remember you are not here to judge, but to love that which you see. All that you see is love in some distortion or another, and you are here to reflect love back into that which you see. Therefore, gaze deeply within as you see the news of the day, asking for insight as to the patterns of service to self and service to others, so that you may see beyond the details into the grand patterns that are moving energetically within the global web of energy that is the Earth. And as you come into realizations concerning how the two polarities work and how they complement each other, open your heart to love what you see, to send love into the situations that disturb you, and to rejoice with those things that you see that speak to the primacy and the victory of love. For that you shall see beyond all these implements of fear that so abound in your outer world. And this is, again, one of those things that I love so much about Confederation teachings, that they always inspire people to love rather than fear. And yes, looking around, it would seem that, yes, those who are in positions of power in our political and economic and social institutions, that seems to be part of the STS playbook, to just keep everyone in a perpetual state of fear and anxiety and chaos, so that they can never find a moment's peace and think about the greater meanings of life and think about loving others and such. And yes, these Confederation teachings always inspire me with love and hope for the future. That's a really beautiful thing, and is the hallmark of service to others, entities, I believe. Phoenix, any thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, same. I think that the line about reading the news or the happenings without judgment, but to learn, is something that, it's so inspiring to hear again and remember, because I went through, I think, Jonathan, it's similar to how you were saying, a lot of time in my life where reading about what was going on in the political world, or it was just kind of like this. It was almost like a drug of getting angry about it or feeling like I wanted it to change. And that doesn't, again, mean not having discernment with how you want to spread love and choose, but being able to accept the happenings of the world with love and seeing them through that lens. At least it's been such a powerful thing for me. And I feel so fortunate to be with a group of people that also are trying as much as we can to look at the world that way.
Indeed. Indeed. I always learn from all of you guys, and I really appreciate our sharing time together and learning and growing together. Andy, anything to add? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think fear is so tricky for so many people. We're trained and conditioned to be fearful. My daughter was born, it seemed, without a sense of fear. Like she was climbing up to the ceiling on the bookcase before she could even walk. And back then, because I wasn't as familiar with the law of one, I'm like, oh no, this child has no fear. I need to teach her to fear. And then as I meditated more, I realized actually there's nothing to fear. And we've just been trained to react first with fear before anything else. And as I got deeper into my meditations, I realized that fear is just an invitation to love and allow and accept. And every time you sort of go walk over the threshold of fear, because the faith, when you let go of that fear, is actually really, really strong. So, yeah.
Well said. Thank you. Raquel?
Yeah, I agree, Andy. Fear is obviously an absence of love. But I feel like every time you're faced with a fear, like a decision or a choice that seems, or a situation that seems fearful, I'm noticing myself now when I have that fear within me and I feel like, oh, this is fearful feelings, anxiety feelings. Obviously I sit with them and wonder where I accept these feelings, I acknowledge these feelings, and I realize that I need to choose love in this moment, in this situation. And so how do I choose love in that moment or situation? Well, it depends on the situation. But when I move myself towards love, I move myself out of fear. And I believe that's pretty indicative of what STO and STS is, right? You're living in a state of fear. You don't want to lose your power. You don't want to lose your control, your manipulation. That's STS. And STO is, I want to bring love to the situation. I want to release fear. I want to be out of this bondage, because fear is a bondage state, in my opinion. You know, you feel like I can't do anything because I'm stuck in this state. But once you choose whatever the loving situation, loving option is, I think that improves your situation and it helps you out of that state of fear.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, our friends have said more than a few times that love is pretty much the answer to every question and the solution to every problem. And that is the challenge of finding the love in every moment. Hey, we are coming close to the 2-hour mark, I believe, and kudos to anyone who's like still watching all the way through. If you've made it through this long, that's pretty good. I do want to start winding things down. We did actually have a question that was submitted to us by our friend Neely, who asked, do STOs who are manipulated or enslaved by STS entities lose positive polarity, whether they are aware of themselves being manipulated, enslaved, exploited, or not? And if they do become aware, do they need to do something about it? It's a great question, and I'm not really sure how to answer that other than what others have said already, which is it's about your intentions, I think. And I don't think one loses polarity if one's intentions are still to be of service to others, even if one is being manipulated or controlled by STS entities. And in terms of doing something about it, I think this was a question that came up in the raw contact where Don was asking about how to deal with this fifth density negative entity that was giving them such a difficult time. And Rob basically said, you wish them love, light, peace, and joy, and bid them well. That way you're not wishing anyone harm. You're just saying, I decline to accept the services you're offering. Anyone else, panelists, have any thoughts on that question?
Yeah.
Didn't show this one to you ahead of time. You're gonna have to think on your feet on this one.
Luckily, we know how to do that. But great question, Neely, by the way. And yeah, they have a saying where, you know, there's like major people controlling certain people, and they call them useful idiots. And I guess that would in line with the people that are doing stuff that, you know, imposing rules that are service to self dictated, and they are unaware. They're just there to impose the rules, so they don't know. So there is where I would say, yes, the intention there, you know, them being unaware that it's coming from a control system and them enforcing it is service to self, but they're unaware of that. So they think they're just doing their job. In that case, I would say probably they wouldn't lose polarity. But in a case where they know they're part of the, you know, the structure and they're a little bit more than a useful idiot, I would say there is a loss of polarity there, because once you've chosen your path, if you're not sticking to it and you're just flip-flopping back and forth, you're losing polarity either way. You know what I mean? So that's my very unofficial opinion. Do not take it with any take it with full discernment, is what I should say.
And a couple grains of salt. Oh, that's good. That makes sense. Appreciate that. Phoenix, Andy, do you have any other opinions to share on it?
Andy, you go.
Yeah, I think every situation is unique. I think we need to just look in our heart, and you know, if it feels joyful, you're all right. If it feels tense and tight and painful and fearful, then you're losing polarity. I feel like it's as simple as that. Just go back into the silence and you'll find
meditate on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. Phoenix, if you don't have anything particularly important to add, I think I want to go ahead and start winding this down. There is a question of why is the Earth having such a hard time graduating to fourth density? And in this session, I think Quo spoke to that pretty nicely. They said, it is so that as a planetary population becomes ready to be harvested, it calls for inspiration in such a way that those entities who are sympathetic to that call will come and visit. However, it is unusual for a planet so near to harvest to have visitations from both positive and negative sources. It is more common to see this pattern at the beginning of a major cycle. By the second minor cycle, there is usually the beginning of a planetary choice for the positive or negative polarity. With your planet, contrary-wise, the majority of those choosing at all upon your planet have indeed chosen the positive polarity. There is far more positive energy upon your planet than negative. However, there is enough negative polarity to create a dual call, both positive and negative. This has blurred and confused the situation, since instead of having one concerted planetary surge towards the light or towards the darkness, there is this continuing dynamic betwixt the light and the darkness as entities approach graduation. Therefore, your planetary sphere is anomalous and having dual visitation. And yes, that does kind of call back to the graphic that we had for this episode, indeed. Our friends in the Confederation have said more than a few times that, yeah, as a planetary population, we're having a hard time graduating because we're having a hard time moving the needle as a collective, either towards service to others or service to self. Because, as they said, most people would prefer the light than the dark. Most people would prefer to live in a world of light and love rather than fear and darkness. But there is a significant percentage of our population that is actually going for a service to self, and they're going with it with just as much determination and will and faith as those of the other polarity. So the needle just keeps kind of moving back and forth here, and we're having a hard time getting it to move and stay in the direction that most people would prefer. And that is, of course, how service to self entities would prefer. They really want people to stay asleep. They really don't want people to be aware that there is a choice to be made, and they certainly don't want people choosing love over fear. And that is the main reason for this podcast episode, to let you know that there is a choice to be made, and that each person has the ability to consciously rather than unconsciously make the choice to be of service to others, not in order to get to heaven, not in order to graduate, but just because it's the right thing to do. It's what feels right at the deepest, most level of your heart. And it is indeed what the universe is made of. Does anyone else have any thoughts, reflections on that particular piece?
I would say just remembering to see other selves as the creator, even though they may be exhibiting STS or, traits that you might not agree or align with. But once you can see other selves as the creator, I would say that illuminates yourself more to open your heart and to be in the vibration that continues to polarize the planet to the positive, because that's what we're all here to do, And the reason the planet's having such a hard time is because we think we're separate. We're this race, we think we're this religion, we think we're this sex, but we're all one. Like, that's the truth of the matter. And the more you open up your heart and your mind to that, and me, that was an involvement, a conscious involvement and a conscious choice. And now when I look and I see anybody, I'm like, that's the creator. And regardless of what they're doing, I still have a loving space in my heart for them.
Well said, indeed. Which kind of brings us to our conclusion, I guess you could say, which is, so where do we go from here? To sum up, I guess might encourage you to think about four things. One, make a choice of either service to others or service to self and commit to that path. Know that there's a choice to be made, and it determines not just what happens in this lifetime, but for all of your lifetimes after this. Second, remember who you are and why you're here. In spite of what might have been led to believe otherwise, nothing is random and everything here is for a purpose. So once you start investigating and really committing to find out on the deepest level who you are and why you're here, I think you will discover there is many surprises, many gems, much help to be found. There are many angelic beings who would love nothing more than to help you discover who you are and why you're here. And as mentioned, third, be yourself. Be who you are on the deepest level and express your love of Creator and best you can and however you are. And lastly, has been said, love the unlovable. That is what we are here to do, to learn how to love not just ourselves and not just our family and not just our friends and not just the members of our tribe or our group, but to love everyone. That's the way to go from here. Panelists, do you have any last thoughts on anything before we tie things up in a bow here?
I think that's perfect. Perfect summation and amazing readings that you picked. It's been just an amazing conversation. And if you're still listening, thanks for listening. And hopefully this is illuminating. But this was a lot of fun.
It was fun for us. I don't know about anybody watching. Might be a complete waste of time, but yeah, hopefully not. If
Choose
you've watched
love.
this far, yeah.
Yes, you've chosen love by watching this video. Thank you.
Very sure. Thank you.
We all love the one, like Raw Contact, love the one nerd. So if anybody's still there, you're one of us, you know, like you just love to
Yeah.
dive into spiritual texts and information. So thank you for sticking with us for so long. Thank you, Jonathan, for having me and giving me a chance to express myself and share this beautiful space with you all. I thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. It's been very enjoyable and insightful, and I've learned a lot.
Indeed, as I always do. Well, those of you who have seen enough, feel free to stop the video now, and we hope to see you next time. But those of you who are sticking around for the pop quiz, I do indeed have a pop quiz for you. Let me see if I can cue this up properly.
Yay!
There we go.
That's me freaking out.
Yes. Pop quiz is something that we like to do at the end of these sessions, just to add a little bit of laughter and levity to otherwise serious metaphysical discussions. So, panelists and viewers who are still with us, you already know that in session 11 of the Raw Contact, Ra did identify Genghis Khan as one of 3 historical figures who did graduate to 4th density on the negative service to self path. Panelists, do you know who the other 2 were? This is not the pop quiz question. This is still the setup. But do you remember who the other 2 were?
I do. I think I do.
Boba tea? Something boba? I don't know.
I'm sure he'd be really flattered to hear that. Yeah.
One was Rasputin, right? And then the other wasn't it like a character? It was like yeah. And I can't believe I know that. I'm so embarrassed, but yeah, I read that.
Yeah,
like
it was
one nerd. Yeah, it was Rasputin.
No, you should know.
What was the character's name?
It was Genghis Khan, Rasputin, and a person named Taras Bulba, who it was discovered later was a fictional character in a book, which led many to wonder how exactly a fictional character in a book could be harvested to negative service to self. I will suffice it to say at this point, if you are interested, go to the LNL website, get into their conscious channeling library, and find the transcript from the session that happened on March 25th, 2023, not that long ago. That's where the question was asked. And they did actually explain and said that basically there was actually a physical entity, but that person, like many service to self entities, prefers to remain anonymous. So that character was a character, but it was based on an actual person. At least that's what our friends in the Confederation said. So what we want to find out today is, what else do you know about Genghis Khan other than that he was last seen working as a shipping clerk in 4th density? I have 3 multiple choice questions to ask you. See how many you can get right. And as always, the points don't matter. If you had fun, you won. Panelists, are you ready for your first question?
We're ready.
Wait, so the first one wasn't a question? I didn't get points for that?
No, that was just the setup. Yeah.
I do want to let the audience at home know that Jonathan likes to make these impossible for us to get the answer. So just
right. If you get any of these correct, I'm pretty pissed. If you get more than one of these correct, I am livid. Thank you. Your first question. You might not know this, but the name Genghis Khan was actually given to this entity later in life. So what was Genghis Khan's birth name? Was it A, Tiberius, B, Temujin, or C, Tenzin? What do you think, panelists? You just shout it out when you got it. Whatever you think.
Temjin came to me for some reason.
I would C. I'll go C. No idea.
I'm going B.
I'll go A just to vary it.
Nice, covering all the bases.
Yeah.
The correct answer is indeed B. Temujin means iron in Mongolian. Tenzin is from the Tibetan language, and I believe was the name of a character in Avatar, The Last Airbender. Tiberius, of course, was the middle name of a character that we all know and love, and that is whom? From Star Trek?
Oh,
No, I don't know.
Really?
maybe-
Tiberius was Captain Kirk's middle name. He was James T. Kirk, and the T stood for Tiberius, interestingly enough.
we're on our way to making Jonathan livid. Let's go.
I'm surprised you didn't know Tiberius was James T.
No,
Kirk's middle
yeah, I
name.
know it was T. Kirk, but I've never bothered trying to find out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. Yeah, there's a number
the
of
T
stories
stood
behind
for.
that, but we will let our viewers research that on their own. Are you ready for your second question?
Yes.
Second question.
Yeah.
Approximately what percent of modern day males are related to Genghis Khan? Is it A, 0.05%, B, 0.5%, or C, 5%?
I would say C.
C.
I know it's a really high number.
C.
I'll go B.
The correct answer is indeed B. During his
Oh.
lifetime, Genghis fathered children with 6 wives and an even larger number of concubines. While it's impossible to know just how many children he had, there was a 2003 study that was published in the American Journal of Human Genetics that stated that Genghis Khan's DNA could be found in 8% of Asian men, a number large enough to account for 0.5% of the world's population.
Wow.
Apparently, it was some marker on the Y chromosome, which would be the male chromosome, which was found in 16 populations around Asia. It was present, representing a frequency of about 8% of the men carrying it, making which makes it up about 0.5% of the world total. And this variation apparently suggested that it originated in Mongolia about 1,000 years ago, which was about that dude's time. Bonus question. This is not on the screen, but do you know what the world record is for a woman birthing the most children?
There's this lady that keeps having children. What is she up to? Like 30?
It's more than 30. The world record.
A world record. Okay. That's USA probably.
69, coincidentally enough. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, a Russian woman named Valentina Vasilyeva and her husband Fyodor hold the record for the most children a couple has produced. She gave birth to a total of 69 children, 16 pairs of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets between 1725 and 1765 for a total of 27 births. And those all have been recorded in some form or another. Supposedly, the dude also had 6 sets of twins and 2 sets of triplets with a second wife for another 18 children and 8 births for a total of 87. But that claim is disputed, as records at that time were not well kept. So we're going to stick with 69. We like that number.
The number. And I guess they are the inspiration for condoms and contraception.
I guess.
That's crazy.
Jesus Christ. 69 kids, 27 births. That's, wow.
Well, they didn't do a lot of 69ing, did they?
Apparently not. Apparently not. Are you ready for your last question?
Let's have it.
Last question. Which of the following is not known about Genghis Khan? Is it A, what he looked like, B, how he died, or C, where he is buried?
I'm gonna go C because I think I would have.
I'm gonna go with B because I just don't know. Like how like, actual answer to the question.
Yeah, what do they mean what he looks like? I mean, presumably he's Asian, right? So he looked Asian.
And all Asians look alike, so I guess he looked like me, basically. Yeah.
The wheels are coming off the podcast 2 hours in.
Jesus Christ, I'm racist to myself.
It's all downhill from here. Jonathan STS, he switched polarity in the middle of the podcast.
In the middle of the podcast. I've been saved.
Oh,
What do you think, Andy? A, B, or C? You want to
okay,
split the difference and call it A?
What he looks like.
That's good. I believe all three of you correct. The correct answer is all of the above. Though, although there are many modern-day depictions of Genghis Khan, artists were strictly prohibited from capturing his likenesses during his lifetime. No portraits, no sculptures, no coins, no nothing. It wasn't until after he died that people began to reproduce his likeness, and it's been reproduced in different ways. So I guess like Taras Bulba, he kind of liked to remain in the shadows, didn't want people to know what he looked like. And the cause of his death remains unclear. Some rumors suggested he died of bubonic plague. Others believe it was due to blood loss after a fall. But after his death, however it occurred, Genghis Khan was buried in an unmarked grave. And in order to ensure that this spot remained a mystery, 1,000 soldiers rode horses over the area to remove any traces of the grave site, and remains to this day unknown. So we do not know where he is now or what he is doing, but we do bid him well, because you got to respect any entity that was able to do what he did through the sheer power of will and faith. Another topic for another episode. Panelists, any last thoughts on anything before we say goodbye?
For me. Thanks, Jonathan, so much for hosting. It was great.
enjoyed this thoroughly, just as good as when we do our Seattle groups, meditation and group chats. Enjoyed it. We're a great group, by the way.
Yay, us. We're so much better than all the other groups.
Yeah. And to the 2 people still watching, you're great, and we love you.
Join us. You're just as good as we are.
Andy, any last thoughts before we say goodbye?
Yeah, just thank you all just for existing.
Indeed, for all you do to service to others. And yeah, did want to remind folks, there are a lot of great study groups out there. Each group has a different vibe depending on who's there, who's facilitating, but they're all great committed groups. So you can go to the L&L research page, find the Connect tab, find the list of study groups there, and find groups that meet in person or meet online. And I think you will find that those like mind who seek together shall more surely find, I believe is how it's said. Until then, panelists, again, thanks for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. Thank you to all our friends at L&L Research for all you've done and continue to do in service. To the both of you who are still watching at this time, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. Love you much. Till next time, in the love and light of the one infant creator.
Love y'all.
Namaste.
Love you. Thank you.
Love you guys. Thank you so much.